Everything is moving so fast out there, friends. We are being dragged into World War III. What am I talking about? Well, first off, we have the Estonian defense minister out there saying that basically every single NATO country already has troops deployed into Ukraine secretly. Now we just have, finally, the Ukrainian government has formally requested that NATO troops openly deploy troops to Ukraine. And let's just say people are seriously considering it. NATO countries have already lined up and said, we'll do it, we'll do it. The United States is still saying we're not going to do it, but we're hearing from the Joint Chiefs of Staff that it's eventually going to happen, that it's an inevitability. Plus, we have a whole wave of drone attacks against Russian oil facilities across the Black Sea. We got a lot to talk about what's going on over there because we are, like I said, being dragged into World War III. Let's jump into it. Welcome to the Poplar Report. I'm Steve Poplar. I'm an accountant by trade, and we track what's going on out there so you don't have to listen to that garbage on the mainstream media. We keep you up to date with what's going on. We get you right into the news, get you right to the facts, and give it right to you straight. All right, so this is a quote from the chairman of the U.S. Joint Chiefs of Staff. Right now, officially, the United States does not have any soldiers deployed to Ukraine. We all know that that's just stupid and that's just dumb. That's not the reality of the situation. But officially, that's the reality of it. Congress is being told, yeah, we don't have anyone in there. Everyone else, the media, we're being told no one in there. But we do have trainers, I'm sure, and special operations guys and all that kind of stuff like that. But here's what the chairman of the U.S. Joint Chiefs of Staff, so right below the defense, I want to say defense minister, Secretary of Defense, below the Secretary of Defense is the U.S. Joint Chiefs of Staff, one for Air Force, one for Navy, Army, all that kind of stuff, right? General Charles Brown, Jr., who sounds like a tool as it is the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He says this: eventual deployment of U.S. trainers looks inevitable. Quote, we'll get there eventually over time. So, doesn't matter if basically everybody in the United States is against this. Doesn't matter that, like, if this was put up before Congress, it would get voted down, like, so fast. Nobody at the street level supports sending U.S. troops into Ukraine. Nobody. Like, there's pink-haired wackos that are for this. But other than that, if you go 10 feet off a college campus, you won't be able to find a living soul who supports this insanity. And yet we're being told by the bureaucrats, by the unelected bureaucrats, that this is inevitable and that we're going to get there regardless of what everyone says about it. Estonian defense minister said this, quote, the reality is that every NATO member country already has military personnel in Ukraine. Now, whenever we see deployments of NATO anywhere, you see 75% of it's the United States and about 25% is like everybody else, right? So, if everyone else has some troops in Ukraine, you just know there's a whole lot of CIA, special operations, black ops people doing all sorts of stuff. Green Berets probably have like command centers all over the country. They probably have like Dairy Queens set up. I mean, like, it's probably quite a big deal. The Green Berets usually lead the charge in training. And mark my words, even though Ukraine is like, send us trainers, they don't care where their soldiers are trained. Right now, they're being trained in Germany. Right now, they're being trained in Poland. They're being trained in the United States. They're being trained all over everywhere. Recruits from Ukraine are being moved over to these other countries, and they're being trained to fight, and then they're being sent back to Ukraine. Ukraine is like, it'll be faster if you send the trainers here to Ukraine, and we can train the troops here closer to the front, and then we can send them right in. Ukraine doesn't care where these soldiers are trained. They couldn't give a flying flip. I mean, it literally takes a couple more hours to get to Poland, right? That's they're not concerned about that. And neither are these countries like France or Estonia that are pushing this. They're chomping at the bit to get U.S. trainers and NATO trainers, but more than anything, they want U.S. trainers in Ukraine. Why is that? Why does it make so much of a difference to them that U.S. trainers are in Ukraine openly? Let's think about that for a moment. If U.S. trainers are training them, Ukrainian soldiers right in Poland, logistically that adds just like practically nothing, right? And so why are they so adamant that they want NATO troops openly in Ukraine? Well, it's quite frankly two things. One, escalation. They want an escalation. They want more NATO and the United States to be more into this, have more at risk, more at stake. And that's really where it comes down to it. They want U.S. troops in Ukraine as a tripwire. They could think of nothing better than U.S. trainers being in Ukraine and getting hit by a Russian airstrike. Now, if Russia won't actually go along with this and actually do the airstrike, I promise you, these people that want to drag us into World War III, they will make an airstrike happen. Okay, whether it's a U.S. drone or a U.S. missile or captured Russian weapons that they find and use for this, whatever it will take in order to drag the United States and NATO into an open war with Russia in Ukraine, they will do whatever is necessary. So the fact that they're trying to drag NATO and really United States soldiers into the open in Ukraine so they can potentially be attacked, or so that a black flag, a false flag can be set up against them, really shows you where this is going. And the fact that even the Joint Chiefs of Staff are saying it will get there eventually over time. Friends, if you look at what's happening over there in Eastern Europe, you're going to see that these guys are getting their butts handed to them. It's starting to fall apart. What time do they think we have? They know that time is short, and that's why they are pushing this hard. They need to get the U.S. and NATO tripwires in there so that they can create this false flag to drag us all headlong into this war. We keep telling Ukraine not to attack the Russian oil facilities, and in defiance of repeated warnings from the Biden administration, the Ukrainian military continues ramping up kamikaze drone attacks on the Russian energy complex, a move to crush the nation's crude oil and crude product export revenues to curtail Moscow's ability to fund President Putin's special operation in Ukraine. They attacked the Rosneft refinery in Tuapse on the Black Sea. This is the only Russian refinery on the Black Sea. It's already been attacked back in January, but they got it operational again, and so Ukraine's like, hey, time to hit it again. The refinery has a capacity of about 240,000 barrels per day processing, and it got knocked down because of the attack in January. They got it back up and running, so Ukraine has hit it again. Russia said that it intercepted about 51 drones over Crimea on Friday, just yesterday. Another 4 dozen over the southern Krasnodar region and elsewhere. These are naval drones as well as air drones, just basically waves of these things. They're not actually blocking the Russian advance. What they're doing is they're just lobbing more and more missiles into the civilian areas of Russia. And this is concerning. So basically, they had about 907,000 barrels per day production capacity of their refineries offline at the end of March. But just as of last week, they had gotten it down so that they only had 660,000 barrels per day of production offline. Now, this is a large amount of refinery capacity that is offline. This is causing some issues. Now, I'm not going to sit here and cry crocodile tears for Russia. They started this war and they're being attacked, and they're legitimate military targets. That's just what they are. But for America, that's not at war. For much of Europe, that's not at war, even though we all have troops deployed to Ukraine doing who knows what. This is definitely going to cause problems in just general availability of diesel and gasoline. It's causing a glut of oil, and the continued sanctions against Russia are causing more and more disruptions into the oil and then the fuels like jet fuel, kerosene, right? Gasoline, diesel. All these refined goods are having more and more issues out there. And this is going to get worse. Ukraine seems to be very intent on taking as much of Russia's refineries offline as fast as they can. So there was some discussion about whether Russia would actually be able to repair these refineries. But partnering with China and other countries like Turkey and others, looks like they have been figuring out how to fix them relatively fast. This seems to be more of a nuisance to them. But when it comes to troops deployed in Ukraine, if NATO deploys troops, particularly France has been open about saying that they want to deploy their Foreign Legion to Ukraine. Putin has actually responded to that specifically, but he didn't say exactly what would happen, but he just said that there would be consequences. So the deployment of NATO troops openly to Ukraine, there would be consequences. He said, he started off by just kind of like asking, what would this mean? What would this actually look like? And once we find that out, then there would be consequences. And of course, that was right about the time that they started doing their tactical nuclear weapon drills over in Russia. So I'm not fluent in Russian threats, but that sure seems like they were basically kind of equating the possibility of NATO troops to tactical nuclear weapon usage in Ukraine. And I think that that's part of what a lot of these defense chiefs across the West are definitely hoping for. That for them would be great, is that if it doesn't even require an attack on U.S. and NATO troops in Ukraine, so there might not even be any foreign casualties, if Russia just starts using tactical nuclear weapons, one or two, on the front lines or to attack some kind of strategic target, that would, in the minds of the West, be so unthinkable that it would galvanize NATO and the United States to deploying troops to secure Ukraine from Russian aggression for forever. And so it seems like we're trying to pull them into using tactical nuclear weapons. Now, for those of you out there who have basically been indoctrinated by Hollywood that any use of nuclear weapons would be like the end of the world or something like that, it would be so catastrophic, it wouldn't be. They could use tactical nuclear weapons over there and it would basically do absolutely nothing except cause massive destruction where it would happen. And these would be relatively concentrated areas that would be destroyed. If they're air bursted, there wouldn't be that much radioactivity fallout or anything like that. People are like, why would they nuke? That would just blow all that stuff back over Russian territory. Well, if they air burst them, mostly because they're just trying to kill soldiers, not necessarily trying to cause deep penetrating damage to like bunkers or anything like that. If they just want to blow a big hole in the defensive lines or hit a lot of air defense systems, that kind of thing, they can air burst it and cause a lot of surface damage without causing a lot of radioactivity. So that's how that actually works out. If you read the source materials, FAS, Federation of American Scientists, have a lot of information out there. They were organized to protest against the use of nuclear weapons. That's their whole purpose. But then they put out tons of information about militaries around the world, open source stuff. They basically aggregate it, and it's just, lots of useful information there, and just so many other places. When you look at what actually a nuclear weapon will do and at different yields, that would be very much in the realm of planning. The United States, like I've mentioned before, had the Nike air defense systems, which was basically a nuke sitting on top of a missile. And the missile was going to fire up into the air and then blow all the Russian bombers out of the air. That was the plan. We were going to detonate nuclear weapons over Canada. If you're Canadian and you're listening to this and you're like, they were going to do what? Yeah. We were going to detonate nuclear weapons over Canada to destroy Russian bombers coming over Canada to come into the, to launch missiles into the United States. And that's just what the plan was. We were going to use that for other systems too, where you had aircraft that had nuclear-tipped missiles that were going to detonate over. So basically, if Russian bombers and fighters were coming at us in a big wall, and we had all of our fighters kind of going towards them, we would actually launch nukes to break up their air attack. We had, Russia was already planning on using nuclear-tipped torpedoes to attack our carriers. We were going to have, they were going to launch nuclear-tipped torpedoes to blow up underneath of our aircraft carriers and destroy them. If they just went off near the carrier, that would work because it would create a wall of water. Radioactive water, actually, since it would be detonating in the water, it would create a lot of radioactivity in that water. So that's what we're being pulled into. World War III is just over the horizon. All the West needs is an excuse. And Russia has been working hard at not giving NATO, not giving the United States an excuse. Every time the United States has tried making it out like Russia's using chemical weapons, Russia has come back and said, here's the proof, no, we're not. And every time that the United States has tried to conjure up atrocities and everything like that, Russia's come up with receipts and show that those things are fake. And we've seen example after example after example of the CIA and the other intelligence agencies trying to drum up some horror to draw NATO and the United States into war inside Ukraine. Now, much to the dismay of many of these people, what happened in Israel really just distracted a lot of that attention away from Ukraine. Most Americans really don't care what happens in Ukraine anymore. I mean, everyone basically kind of hopes that Ukraine wins over Russia. I mean, not many people really want Russia to win. So it's just kind of a, we don't really care. And that's why no one's really, people are pushing back against all the money going to Ukraine. But when it comes down to it, nobody wants U.S. troops there. And yet that's what our betters, the powers that be, the deep state, all these globalists and stuff like that, they want World War III to be happening in Ukraine. They want everything tied down right there. And they want this escalated until it drains the coffers of the Russians and the Chinese, hopefully, too, and has the fight right there because they don't want to fight it elsewhere. But their best laid plans always go astray, don't they? All right, friends. Thanks so much for watching. If you want to check out another video from this channel, there's one right up here. I'll see you over there, or I'll see you guys later. Steve Poplar of the Poplar Report, out.